Hello and greetings and welcome to this short video presentation on subnetting made easy. What we're going to look at is a real-world scenario. So we're going to go into my disclaimer. This is not going to apply for testing purposes. All right? For testing purposes, you're going to want to use a subnetting cheat sheet that you can write out after you've gone into the test center. You sit down in front of the computer. You're given a whiteboard and a marker. You can write out your subnet chart. Now, let's go over that real quick here because I don't want to confuse anybody. So this is what the subnetting chart looks like. All right, you're just going to write it out, and it's got your CIDR notation, your subnet mask, and your IPs. Okay, and it goes all the way up to a Class A. All right, so that's what you would use. This is what you write out. Normally, I would only write it out for the Class C and the Class A, all the way up to the 16-bit. I don't mess around too much with the Class A because I've not had that scenario in the test center for the CCNA. I've only had the subnetting questions regarding either a Class C or a Class B. All right, so you can go out and you can get all these free subnetting cheat sheets off of the internet. They're plentiful. There's 150 ways to do this. You can find one that meets your style. Okay, all right, let's go ahead and get started here. So I've been given a scenario here, and in this scenario I'm the consultant. The network client calls me up and he says to me, hey, we've outgrown our network. We have one big network and everybody's communicating and browsing the network as they wish. So what we would like to do is bring in somebody to re-IP the address, subnet our address, and give us better security. All right, not a problem. I'll be glad to do it for you. I'm the consultant. I've sat down with management. I've done my assessment. And here's what I've come up with. I've come up with 12 subnets that need to be configured for this network. And I've identified the departments, and we talked it over, and we decided that these departments need to be isolated from one another using a subnet. Not a problem. Now that 12 subnet is going to be used for the serial router interfaces. All right? Or the router serial interfaces, however we like to say it. And for that scenario, we're going to use VLSM, and I'll show you how to do that. All right, so what three things do we have to be able to subnet any network? Well, one, we need to know the total number of networks that we're going to need for the network. I've identified 12, so we've got that information. The total number of hosts for each network. That is going to be the maximum number of hosts allowed. All right. We've got that information. Then lastly, I need the network address. I have decided that we're going to use a Class B subnet address of 172.16.0.0. All right, now we've got our three pieces of information. All we have to do now is come up with this subnet IDs and the host ID ranges. All right, that's all we got to do. So let's go see how we do that easily. Now again, I can sit down and I can figure this out using a subnet calculator, or not a subnet calculator, but a pencil and paper. I can sit there and I can try to figure this out, and hopefully I don't make any mistakes. Hopefully it doesn't take me too long, or I can do this in about 5 minutes using a subnet calculator. All right, one of my favorite subnet calculators is www.subnetmask.info. Now I'm going to give you another disclaimer. In the 17 years that I've been doing networking in the trenches, I have never had to subnet a network. All right, my network has already been subnetted. I walk in, and usually there's some type of scenario going on where I have to rebuild the network, but for the most part, the network IP and everything's already there. Even if I forklift the network, I'm not going to change the IP address. Okay. When I bring up everything back to the network, we're going to basically run with it. Now, there are some instances where you work in an ISP shop, or you work for some type of telecom where you do have to do networking or subnetting. That's different, all right? But for the most part, when you're a networking guy, a networking consultant, contractor, That's already been done for you. But for the class scenario, for learning purposes, I'm going to show you how I would do it. All right. Now, with that being said, if you had an assignment and the assignment said, I want you to go ahead and subnet this network here for these 12 different these 12 different areas of the network, or this one big network, break it up into 12 subnets, you would know how to go get a subnetting calculator and a VLSM calculator and do it. So let's get started. All right. So in this case here, all I have to do is type in the IP address I was given for the network. 172.16.0.0. All right. Now, we said that I needed 12 subnets. 8 is not enough. 16 is the next highest number, but I'm not going to use 16. I'm not going to use 16 because it hobbles the network and doesn't allow for growth. The first one's no good, the last one's no good, so in reality I only have 14 subnets. To preclude me from running out of subnets in the near distant future, I would say that I'm going to go to the next higher number of available subnets and use 32. I could use 64. I think 32 or 64 would be the correct answer, but I think 32 is the right answer. Why? Because it allows for 100% growth of the network, which will last me over the next 5 to 7 years. So let's go ahead and select 32. Now again, we're using the max number of hosts, and then once I hit calculate, all this information down here is going to fill in for me automatically. So let's just go ahead and calculate this up. So the subnet calculator has came back and it said, well, you're going to use a subnet mask of 248 or /21. That's going to give you your 32 subnets, and for each subnet you will have a maximum number of hosts of 2048. All right. What do I need next? I need to see the list of available networks that I can pull from. I know I have 32, but I need that list. I also know that I'm going to be using a block of 8, but it's nice if I have the list just given to me, and by saying show me or list the networks, I get that list using this calculator. So my first network is going to be 172.16.0.0 with a starting IP for my host of 0.1 all the way up to 7.254 with a broadcast IP of 7.255. All right. So here's the deal. I'm going to go back over here and I'm just going to start filling in my chart. Almost kind of backwards, but that's fine. So my subnet ID is 172.16.0.0 and my range of IPs for my hosting is 172.16.0.1 all the way through 172.16.7.254. That is what gives me the 2048 available host IPs. That range right there. That's what does it for me right there. Okay. Now I can just go down my subnetting chart, my list of networks, and I'll just take the next IP, right, which is .8, go to the next one, .16, and each department will have its own subnet of whatever the next available IP is. All right, so let's see how that works. So I'm just going to go down here, and for finance, my next available subnetting ID is 172.16.8.0, and we also see that the range of IPs that we're going to have for that one is going to range from 172.16.8.1 all the way up to 172.16.15.254, and there's my broadcast IP. So I just keep filling out the information, all right, until I get all this filled in. Now we look at the 12th subnet. Now the 12th subnet has been put aside for routing purposes. That is to configure the interfaces on my 3 routers. I have 3 routers. One is for the sales, one's for HR, and one's for payroll. All right. So what I'm going to use now is a VLSM subnetting calculator, and I'm going to come up with this. Now, why do I even care? Well, I could assign one of those 32 subnets to each one of these routers. For instance, on the sales router, I could assign subnet 12. For the HR router, I could use subnet 13. And for payroll, subnet 14. But that's going to waste a whole lot of IP addresses. What if later on I want to use those IP addresses? Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just use the minimum number of IP addresses from the 12th subnet, and I'm going to get me the 6 IPs that I need. All right, 2 IPs for each of the serial interfaces on each of the routers. Okay, let's see how I do that. All right, so we know that we're called sales, HR, and payroll. Those are the 3 routers. All right, I'm going to go back over here, and this time I'm going to go to a VLSM CIDR subnet calculator, and that address is www.vlsm-calc.net. Now I need 3 subnets. Go ahead and change that. And I also got, what do I have? Sales. I've got HR. I've got payroll. All right. And each one of these needs 2 IP addresses, 1 for each serial. All right. My 12th subnet is the .888. That is my 12th subnet. Now, I only need 2 IP addresses, so I'm not going to give it a /21. I'm going to give it a /30 for the CIDR notation, because that would be the subnet mask of 252, which makes only available the 4 bits of the host portion of the network, which you take away the first one, you take away the last one, I have 2 IPs that I can use. That leaves all the rest of those IPs available for hosting if and when I need them. So let's just go ahead and submit this. All right, and there is my results. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy and paste this chart into my document, and I can transfer this information later. Okay, let's go ahead and do this real quick. Copy to clipboard, and I'm just going to go down here, Control V, and there's the information. All right, so there you go. Not too hard. Next, we have to figure out where are the hosting IPs for my different computers. Now, the sales is using a network IP of 172.16.0.0. So you may think that the next available IP that I'm going to use for the sales 1 computer would be the .1, but I don't do that. I use the .1 and assign that to my default gateways, or the internet or the Ethernet interface for the local area network. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in this information here, 172.16.0.1. And I know that this IP address is going to also be the default gateway for the second computer on the sales subnet. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that again. Then we have HR. HR picks up the next available IP range, all right, which is 172.16.8.1. We have also another computer in this network, okay? And I'm just going to go ahead and put that in there. So then the next available subnet for my payroll, let's say that's 172.16.16.1. All right? Okay. And again, and I just keep going down this chart here, and doing this for all the different departments and their hosting, right? So then I know that the next available IP address over here is going to be .2.2. Oh, I'm sorry, this one here would be, that's right, that's .2. This one here would be .3. Okay, like that. And so I can fill out that information if you like. So this would be 172.16.0.2. And of course the subnet mask, we know that already, right? This is the subnet mask for all the subnets or for the entire network, right? Just like that. And then I'm just going to go down here and do the same thing for each one of these blocks here. Okay. Now, we'll go back to the serial interfaces, and we know that we're going to fill in this information. That's all been taken care of. So we're pretty much done here. All right. I've done my subnetting. I've got my IP addresses. And in review, I just want to let you know that as long as you have those three things, you got to know the total number of networks needed. You have to know the total number of hosts for each network, and you have to know the network address. If you know those three things, using the subnet calculators that are available online, or you can even download these subnetting programs, you can configure any network regardless of how big it is. Alright, so that's it for this short video presentation. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. Alright, I'll see everybody up in the course room.